And here he is, the newest permanent resident of Panama. Do you have any words to say?
No. I see the picture.
And that's why I do the videos. Okay, so basically, just so you know, he has his resolution stating that he's a permanent resident, but he's just going to have to come back and get his picture taken, no biggie. And then hopefully mine will be ready in 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. So we'll just come back and do both of ours together, just kind of kill two birds with one stone. All right, let me explain what you just saw in that kind of intro video. Basically, when we were flying to the United States, we were staying in Panama City for a couple of days, just because of our connections and things like that. And we got there, and like no sooner did we get there than we got a notice that Brian's permanent residency had come through. So that was great because we were already in Panama City. Saved us an extra trip from Bocas over there, which is either an hour-long flight or a 9-hour drive, one of the ways. So we immediately went in, and you need 2 days to process your permanent residency. On day 1, we went in and we took Brian's passport and $100 in cash to Kramer and Kramer. Then they took it to immigration to get it processed for us. Day 2 is supposed to be when we're able to get our photograph done for the permanent residency card, just like we had to do for the temporary residency card, but we didn't have 2 days. They tried to expedite it and get it to where they could go ahead and file the paperwork and get the picture taken on the same day, but time-wise, it just didn't work out, and we didn't sweat it because we were coming back. So Brian was all set, and instead of having a card, he had that paper that you saw in the last video, which was basically a resolution stating that he was a permanent resident, and with that, he would be able to come into the residency line at the airport when we were coming back into Panama instead of having to get into the tourist line, which is what we aren't anymore, so we're not supposed to go through the tourist line. So all of that was great. Mine obviously was not processed at the same time because I had that little delay. If you watched our Friendly Nations visa video, part 2, I think it is, I talk about the delay that I had in my residency because I had a glitch in my, not a glitch, I had a ding on my FBI report, okay? So I was running a couple weeks behind Brian. So we're in the United States for 6 weeks or whatever, and during that time while we're there, sure enough, mine comes through. So we knew that as soon as we got back to Panama, then we would be able to finish processing both of our residencies. So basically what happened is when we landed on a Sunday. Brian went in on a Monday and got his picture taken because he needed his residency card because we had some other things that we needed to attend to in Panama City, and he needed his residency card for those, at least we thought at the time. Long story. And then on that same Monday, I went to Kramer and Kramer, gave them my passport and my temporary residency card and $100 in cash so they could go file the paperwork. Then I went, so the Monday, Brian has his picture and his card, and then on the Tuesday, I went back to immigration and got my picture and my card, and voila, we were both permanent residents of Panama. The process, I have to say, was just unbelievably super easy, and the reason for that is twofold. Reason number 1, we got all of our documents together in a timely manner, and reason number 2, we got them over to our amazing attorney, Kramer and Kramer, who, again, I will link below. That is who we use for everything. We have been extremely pleased with them. So, total timeline, when we first arrived in Panama, we gave them all of the documents that they told us to get together, and within a week and a half, Brian had his temporary residency card. Mine took about 3 weeks after that due to that ding in the FBI report that I had to deal with. And then right at about 4 months later, our permanent residency cards came through, and we're permanent residents of Panama. So that was the timeline. Really fast, really easy. Okay, now, what do we do with this permanent residency? Honestly, what does it mean? Well, for one thing, it means that we're obviously not tourists, so we can stay here. We don't have, timeline requirements. Like normally if you're coming in as a tourist, depending upon where you're coming from, you have 6 months to be in Panama before you have to leave. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. We could stay here for the next 30 years straight, and that's just fine. We don't have to leave the country to reset a tourist visa. Number two, there are things with a permanent residency card that we can do that we're not able to do with just a tourist card. One thing is get a driver's license, which we've already talked about in one video. You can go back on the channel and look for that one. And we have another video on driver's licenses coming up, because if you watch that one, you'll see that Brian did not get his driver's license, but you have to have that card to get it. You can get that with a temporary residency card though. We're now able to apply for an e-cedula. So that is kind of like the national identification card of Panama. It's recognized by everyone everywhere, whereas the permanent residency card isn't as well recognized. The great thing about an e-cedula, one of the great things, is that it makes opening bank accounts a little easier, and we're going to have an entire video on the e-cedula process once we get that going. We have already filled out the paperwork and given everything to Kramer to get that in process, so our e-cedulas are in the making right now. And we should have those within about 45 days or so. The other thing, and the super important thing for us, we are now able to get a work permit to be able to legally work here in Panama. Again, we do everything above board here. We are not interested in trying to skirt the law and assume we're not going to get caught or any of that kind of stuff. So once you have that permanent residency visa, then you're able to apply for a work permit. Keep in mind, if you apply for the pensionado visa, the retirement visa, you will not get a work permit, because you are retired. You don't need a work permit, okay? That's why we did well, it's one of the reasons why we did Friendly Nations visa, okay? Because we want a work permit. So that is also in the process with Kramer and Kramer. Let's see. Another thing, it's gonna be a bit of a touchy subject, and I'm telling you right freaking now, my channel is not the place for a gun debate. You wanna go debate guns? Go somewhere else, because if you get into a debate on my channel about it, I'm just gonna block you from commenting, because I'm not gonna listen to a debate. Guns are legal here in Panama, and we do plan to have a gun at some point in time. In order to apply for a gun permit, we have to have that cedula. In order to get that cedula, we have to have the permanent residency thing. So everything kind of all centers around this permanent residency card. And now we have it. And so we're moving on to work permit, moving on to e-cedula, moving on to gun permit, and we will have videos for all of those things coming up soon. So make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you next Friday. Once you have your temporary residency card in hand, you're able to actually track it through the government system and see exactly where your permanent residency is at in the process. There's a total of 8 steps, and then once you get to step 8, which is notification, then you're notified that your permanent residency is now ready to be processed. So let me show you how you do that real quick. You're going to need to go to this website, the Migracion website, and I will put the link for that in the description of the video so you can go right to it. Get your temporary residency card, have it in hand, and then you're going to click on this icon here, and this box is going to pop up. The only thing you have to worry about here is this first one, and it's this tramite number, tramite, whatever that is, numero de tramite. On your residency card, your temporary residency card only, right above your name, it says tramite on there, and there is a 6-digit number. You're going to put that in here, okay? So ours aren't valid anymore because they were temporary, so I'm going to put Brian's in because I never saved mine. And then you're going to hit NVR. All right, when you do, all the information is going to come up. So you can see here that this is Brian's, and that our abogado, our attorney, is Kramer and Kramer, where we're from, blah, 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 blah. Date of the resolution. So this is the final date that your permanent residency was granted. So March 25th. And then you can see the whole process here. So I'm not going to be able to translate all of this stuff, but you can see this is like when documents were received. So that was on November 11th. And then as everything goes through, I mean, these first ones went through pretty quick. Then it took about a month to get through whatever step 4 is. It took about another month to get through the verification of the resolution. And then after that, it went boom, 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 extremely quick, 2 months later. So what is that? That's November, December, January, February, March. Just a tad over 4 months to go from temporary residency to permanent residency. So that's what you're going to do. And it'll just tell you, you're on step 5 or whatever. So then, you have about 3 more. And obviously your time frame is not going to be exactly what ours was, but this kind of gives you a good idea of what you're looking at time frame wise for each of the steps.